thoughts. Hopefully you do good things. Everybody has a competition in their brain of good thoughts and bad thoughts. Hopefully they win. The good thoughts win. For me, I always have both. I have like the thing I believe, the good thing. That's the thing I believe. And then there's this thing.
Yeah, trying a little something new, giving you a little intro music. It wasn't really music, obviously. Those were the comedy stylings of Louis C.K. Everybody give him a round. I know that some people are, I don't know why I made that stupid voice. I know that some of you are probably upset at Louis, for whatever fucking reason. I get it. He did some horrific shit, but he didn't do the horrific shit to me. So as far as I'm concerned, he's still funny to me. So, I can't wait for him to make his fucking, triumphant return. Or at least I'm hoping he will. And I'm hoping that he turns this entire situation into a really funny bit. Because it makes me, I don't know, it makes me laugh at how people pretend as though, although you don't really hear too much talk about Louis C.K. I mean, he was one of the few that actually just apologized and sort of put it to bed. So, if you're still upset at him, even though he didn't fucking do anything to you personally, I don't know. It is what it is, right? But anyway, this is the effing podcast. For those of you that are new to this thing that I do here, sitting at my dining room table, pretending to be a professional. I do a couple of these a week. Usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, but occasionally I like to switch it up. I like to pull I like to do the old rope-a-dope or who the fuck am I kidding? I had some free fucking time. So I'm doing it on a Monday. Although I may not release it till Tuesday, so it might still sort of hold on to that I don't know, whatever the fuck you call it. Anyway, I read an article today by fucking somebody. I can't remember. It's a Politico article. So, usually I don't take Politico why do I keep wanting to say arguments? Articles very seriously because they are part of mainstream news, and I just don't trust what mainstream media has to say about anything because it's usually, they're usually paid to present a particular narrative, if you understand what I'm saying. So, I like to actually research and look stuff up for myself. But I occasionally do read these articles or watch the programs with the talking heads that pretend like they're giving you news. I watch it mostly for entertainment. I do not get my information from any of the talking heads on TV or from any of the newspapers that you have access to. Because they are corporate controlled, and therefore you are getting a corporate biased perspective on things. But anyway, I want to get to the fucking article and quit trying to validate my where I get my info from. I read this article. I can't remember who wrote it, but it was by some lady that was talking about Hillary Clinton and why she hasn't gotten over losing the election to Donald Trump. Now, there are several articles in the world that have been written about this topic, but I found this one. Well, it was really no different than any of the others, right? It was just like, okay, sort of get over it, move on. Lend your voice and your whatever it is that you feel like you bring to the fucking table, lend it to some other cause or get behind policies that you want to see enacted or whatever. Do something else other than piss and moan about 2016. Now, I of course think this is 100% correct. I really wish she would just move on and maybe just, I don't know, get out of the spotlight or quit trying to get into the spotlight. But of course, the Hillary supporters are not happy with this article because, you know, I'm convinced at this point that the reason that Hillary Clinton and her followers cannot just move on and that they cannot accept the real reason why she lost. I figured out it's kind of like, I mean, obviously I speak only from a guy's perspective here, or as a guy, because I am a guy. At least the last time I checked my shorts. That was a fucking corny, fucking hacky joke. I apologize. But, you know, anyway, the reason I feel like she can't move on and why her supporters can't move on is just because they cannot believe that they lost to a fucking game show host with a dead weasel on his head. And I've spent, you know, the better part of, 2017, 2018, trying to convince Hillary supporters that, Hillary was always a flawed candidate. All you had to do was just take a little glimpse into her history. And I don't mean the history that you remember. I'm talking about the shit that maybe you don't know. Like the fact that she didn't come around on gay marriage until like 4 years ago. 4 or 5 years. Maybe it's like 5 years ago. And it just so happens that, out of coincidence, that's right around the time that, suddenly everybody else was okay with it. Up until that point, she was against it 100%. Her husband, in fact, was the one that wrote DOMA, which is the Defense of Marriage Act, which basically removed the right of for gay people to get married. Her husband is the one that put that one out there, and she was 100% against it until it wasn't popular anymore, and then therefore she changed her perspective. Now I know that in response to this, you don't see too many people discussing this online. But what you will hear from her supporters is that, hey, everybody is entitled to a change of heart. And I agree. I don't want to take anything away from her having a change of mind on the subject. The only problem is that she has this reputation for always, being on the side of the little guy, the struggling, and the people that have been, oppressed or whatever. She has this reputation for being on their side when in fact there is actual, examples or data that you can look up that shows that that's not exactly true. And it doesn't help her case that that when she finally flipped on that was only when everybody else was like, fine, let them fucking get married. It's just little tidbits like that. Now, I know that in the big or grand scheme of things, you might be saying, well, that's small potatoes. And, I guess if you are heterosexual like myself, then yeah, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But, if you think about all of the gay people out there that, up until now have had to hide who they are. And she was kind of a part of the reason why they had to hide who they are, and the fact that they couldn't get married and weren't afforded the same rights as everybody else. You might be like, okay, that is kind of a bad thing. That's kind of that's a mark in the, what's flawed about Hillary Clinton, column. Right. And, then you have things like, she was 100% on board with Bill Clinton's crime bill, which exploded the prison population, which categorically affected more African American people than any group with, in the country. Now, you might be saying, well, she wasn't president, she was only first lady, but you can't just make those sorts of excuses for her, right? Because she was for it, right? I mean, if she was against it, I would assume she never would have made the super predators and bringing people to heel comment. If she was against this horrific crime bill that broke up many families, exploded the prison population, as I mentioned, and the fact that they are highly invested in the private prison industry, it kind of makes you wonder, did they propose that because they really felt like they needed to be tough on crime, or was it, we might make a little bit of money here? I don't know. You be the judge on that one. She voted for, her husband proposed NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Act, which was a huge job killer because it basically allowed corporations to pick up their factories and move them overseas or across the border, therefore eliminating a lot of jobs. It also killed unions. It removed people's collective bargaining rights. It opened the door to right to work, which sounds like a good thing, except it's really fucking not, because it basically allows corporations to take away any sort of power from the unions. Now, that you might be one of these people that's like, well, I don't want to pay union dues. Why is it that I should have to fork over some of my hard-earned money to some union, when I already pay X amount of dollars, in taxes and other shit? Well, here's the reason that you should want to be a part of a union, knucklehead, is that, let's say the working conditions at whatever company you happen to work for, let's say Amazon, let's use Amazon as a perfect fucking example, where the people are underpaid, they're overworked, and they're not provided things like air conditioning. This is true. Look it up. Jeff Bezos was experiencing a string of people passing out due to the heat in some of his facilities, and instead of installing air conditioning, he decided instead that he was going to park an ambulance outside to rush people off to the hospital, because it financially for him it was less expensive to have the ambulance than actually provide his workers with air conditioning. I mean, we're talking about the richest man on the fucking planet, if you exclude the Saudi princes and stuff like that. So let's say you worked for Amazon and you're being worked to death and you're passing out due to the heat, and you make below minimum wage. Let's say you feel like, you know what, I deserve better working conditions, a raise in pay, perhaps more vacation time, whatever. How effective would your needs or your desires or your wants be with just you showing up at Jeff Bezos' office, assuming that you actually get to see the guy? How effective would just you by yourself be in creating that sort of situation where you didn't have to like damn near kill yourself in order for somebody to take fucking notice that that you're working extra hard? And I know that there's going to be some people, well, if you just work hard, why are you so against working hard? I'm not against working hard, but what I'm talking about, it falls way beyond the scope of working hard to I'm working like a slave, putting my health and well-being at risk in order to receive 0.001 fucking pay increase. how effective is it going to be if you show up at his to his office by yourself versus showing up to his office with the entire fucking company asking for better working conditions and higher wages and more vacation time or whatever it is? Unions are important. Yes, you have to pay into them, but you're basically paying for not ending up like a fucking slave. But anyway, she was all for NAFTA. Now, again, it is something that Bill Clinton passed, and she was just first lady at the time. But fast forward to right before the general election, before she lost to Donald Trump, and you will read stories where she voted in favor of TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is basically NAFTA on steroids. She voted in favor of that 40-something times before she realized that nobody fucking wanted that. And then she changed her vote. And it just so happens that the only reason she changed her vote from yes, let's have it to nah, let's not, is because Bernie Sanders was talking about how horrific TPP would have been. You have what happened in Libya when she was Secretary of State. I mean, there's a lot of fucking examples. I'm not going to spend this entire podcast talking or rehashing Hillary Clinton's horrific past, but the point is that she does have a horrific past, and there is a legitimate reason for why she lost to Donald Trump, even though the guy is a complete fucking disaster. He's horrific. He's a fucking moron. He is essentially leading us down the road to World War III, all because he can't deal with somebody not respecting his fucking authority. He's essentially the Cartman of presidents. Eric Cartman, for those of you who are like, well, who the fuck is Cartman? From South Park. The reason that people can't, I kind of got lost in my train of thought there, but there's a reason why she lost to him, and the number one reason is because she's been part of a neoliberal machine gone haywire for the past 30 something years. But the other part is because Donald Trump, he pretended to be a populist. He convinced people that had been screwed under Obama that he wouldn't continue to screw them. He gave them a message of hope. It was bullshit, obviously. He is a tremendous fucking snake oil salesman, and a lot of people bought into it. But there was a reason that she lost, and it had nothing to do with sexism or Susan Sarandon or Jill Stein or fucking Vladimir Putin or whatever it is. It is all because she represented what has been basically status quo in this country for the past 30-40 years. That is why she lost. Aside from her own political history being a fucking nightmare. Yes, she has done some good things, but she's done a lot of bad things, and unfortunately a lot of those bad things are far more horrific than any of the good she's done. But I get why she can't move on, and why her supporters can't move on, or at least accept the reality of why she lost. And I'm convinced that it is basically the equivalent of if you're a guy getting your ass kicked by a girl. Now, I know there are going to be some ladies out there like, what do you mean? You know what I mean. It is horrific on a male ego to lose to a girl at anything, but to get your ass kicked by a girl is something that you just, as a man, you couldn't recover from. I mean, unless, of course, if you're just some regular Mo and say, I don't know, fucking Ronda Rousey kicks your ass, that would be understandable. You know, people might give you a break if she kicked your ass, because it's like, all right, well, she was knocking people out. You know, she was fucking getting people to tap and shit. You know, she's a trained fighter. It's understandable that you might, if you're not, you know, if you have no fighting experience, no martial arts experience, it might be understandable. I mean, you're still going to get laughed at, but it might be a little more understandable if somebody that was a part of the UFC kicked your ass. But if it's just some chick, you know, walking down the street that doesn't have any mixed martial arts experience or fight experience, or, you know, and she just kicks your ass, well, that's something that most men, if not all men, could never get over. Because it would be like, you know, I can't believe I got my ass kicked by a woman. You know, I think that the reason that Hillary Clinton and her supporters can't move on is because they're basically having that sort of experience, that it's just, they cannot believe that they lost to this ass clown, that the only reason that they possibly could have lost is because of some foul play or some sexism, or everybody suddenly turned into a racist or whatever. That's why they can't move on. They can't accept that they got lost, or they got beat by the most beatable person on the planet. You know, I mean, here's the thing, and this is how I know that, at least with Hillary Clinton, it is. Her followers, I'm not so sure, because I've gotten into many debates with them, and I've come to realize that most of them are completely clueless about her political history. They're easily led astray. They listen to the talking heads. They're convinced that, you know, Russia did something, or Susan Sarandon somehow, lost the election for her, or whatever it is. But I know that I know that this is the reason for Hillary, because when she lost to Barack Obama, she sort of moved on. She accepted her defeat, because losing to Barack Obama, you know, while I'm sure it was hard on her, it was like, all right, you know, I can take that loss, because, you know, look at him, you know, he's charismatic, he gets people motivated and all of that shit, even though, you know, it turned out that he's just as horrific as Bush was, if not more. But, you know, she could accept that loss, because it would be essentially, you know, if, as a guy, again, if you lost to, to somebody that was basically the same size as you, or maybe a little bit bigger, and he was actually male, and he had some training or whatever, you'd be like, okay, yeah, you know, I get it. You know, I really didn't have a chance of winning that fight. You know, it's obvious why I lost. That's why she could accept that loss. But when it comes to Donald Trump, she can't accept it, because it's just so unbelievable that she got beat by somebody that was supposed to be the most beatable of them all. The problem is she didn't realize that a huge majority of the country was sick of just, not just her, but of what she represented. They were I mean, 8 years ago, they voted in a black guy with a Muslim sounding name. And we're talking about people that voted for Trump this time around. These people voted for Barack Obama twice. And when they realized come 2016 that they were basically just going to get the female version of Barack Obama, they decided, fuck that. You know, we don't need, we already lost our homes. We're already fighting, more wars than we can fucking pay for. We already have an inflated military budget that's out of control. We already don't have a minimum wage and no health care, and we already have all of the fucked up shit that we got from Obama and from previous presidents before him. We don't want any more of that. That is the decision that most people made. Yes, there are some people that are sexist, and yes, there are some people that, loved Trump's racist rhetoric, but it's not the majority. A majority had been screwed by neoliberalism for the past 30 fucking years, and they saw an opportunity to maybe smash the establishment, to get a guy in there that would actually make their lives better. Now, granted, the guy that they got behind was a fucking snake oil salesman, but he was sort of talking the sort of things, or saying the sort of things that they wanted to hear. Like, he said he was going to, get out of Syria. He said that he was going to bring jobs back, and that, I don't know what else he fucking said. He said shit that people wanted to hear. Hillary, on the other hand, had no message except, I'm not that guy. Look, I've got a vagina, and he's grabbing people by the vagina. I mean, that was basically her stance through the entire fucking thing. And the reason why I know that the reason that some people, or a lot of people, went towards Trump because they were hoping to smash the establishment is because when Bernie Sanders still had a chance, you had people that ordinarily voted Republican that were voting for Bernie Sanders during the primary. And then the minute that he wasn't an option, they took their fucking vote and went towards Trump, because he was the only other candidate that was offering something that was going to make their lives better. Those 12% voters that switched once Bernie Sanders lost the primary, those weren't Democrats. A majority of them, like 8 or 9% of them, were independents and Republicans. Bernie Sanders had managed to do the thing that Hillary Clinton could never do, and that's bring in crossover votes. But when she cheated him out of the primary, and yes, she did. I know that you don't want to believe it if you are a Hillary supporter. I know you don't want to believe that she cheated, but she did. When she cheated him out of the primary, they were like, well, all right, we can't have the left populist, so we'll have the right populist. So they went to Trump. But going back to what I was saying is that it's such an unbelievable loss that this is why they can't get over it, because in their minds, it's like it was a lock. How could we have lost this? And the only way we could have lost this is there must have been some foul play somewhere. But the problem is there wasn't. The only problem was Hillary Clinton and what she represented. The fact that she had created, she maybe not created herself, but was a part of what created all of the problems for people. In 2008, when there was like 5 million foreclosures on people's houses that were done illegally. When 5 million people were ready to lose their home, they voted in Obama thinking that, he'll fucking help us. He'll save us. But what did he do? He didn't punish the banks that created the fucking problem. He made them bigger. He gave them a bailout and gave a finger to everyone else. They had been hurt already by the Democratic version of republicanism, which is what it is. The Democrats at this point are nothing more than moderate Republicans. And people had seen, they're not going to fucking help me. I mean, look at them. They created NAFTA, which, decimated the fucking, the factory towns. I mean, look at fucking Detroit. Look what happened to that thanks to fucking NAFTA. For African Americans and, mainly African Americans, they probably were like, fucking, my family was broke, not me personally, but like my family was broken up because of Bill Clinton's crime bill, because he decided to get tough on crime, possibly to enrich himself or maybe to impress Republicans. Who really knows? But, my dad or my mom are no longer, they weren't a part of my childhood, and I've struggled ever since. Why the fuck would I vote to put another person in office that is responsible? Well, maybe not completely responsible. Obviously, everybody is, you're responsible for your own fucking behavior, but, they played a significant part or role in why their, why their childhoods and were fucked up and why they may be struggling as adults. There is a reason that people don't or didn't and still don't want anything more to do with the establishment status quo neoliberal bullshit that Democrats are pushing and have pushed for the past 30 to 40 years. There's a reason people don't want that anymore. Yes, some people were just like, I don't want a woman in charge, and some people were like, yeah, I fucking hate Mexicans and everybody else. I mean, yeah, there are some people that, that naturally would have went with Trump regardless. But a majority of the people were just like, we've had enough with incrementalism. We've had enough with neoliberalism and the Democrats that are basically Republicans, but they're masqueraded as, or they're I don't know what the fucking word is, but anyway, the reason that Hillary Clinton and her supporters, why they can't move on, it is essentially because Donald Trump is is the girl that beat up the guy, which I know is weird because it should be the other way around, but that is essentially what it is. They can't get over it because the loss is so unbelievable that they are stuck in a permanent state of just being in shock, and unfortunately the country is going to crumble because they can't get over it. I still see on Twitter people still arguing with progressives and anybody else about how Hillary was wronged, and just completely, it doesn't even matter if you give them the facts, if you show them proof that she wasn't as good as they're convinced she was. They're just in abject denial. And I don't know if abject was the right word, but that's the one I'm going to use. They're just in absolute, that's the word I was looking for, denial of the truth. And we're all going to suffer for it because, come 2020, how much you want to bet that even though they accused us Bernie supporters and Jill Stein supporters of casting protest votes against their queen, how much you want to guess that if Bernie Sanders runs again, that they will vote for anybody else but Bernie Sanders out of spite, because they feel like, you know what, you didn't vote for who we wanted, so now we're not going to vote for who you want, even though who we want would actually do some good for the country. They're the ones that are going to cast the protest vote, and we're all going to suffer for it just because they can't get over getting their fucking clocks cleaned, however you say that shit, by a orange baboon with a dead weasel on his head. I don't know. You couple that with the fucking, I was listening to the radio this morning as I was taking my son to school. And I currently live in California. I'm from Boston, but I live in California. And they're talking about, at least here in California, they're talking about eliminating tackle football. And no, it's not because, we're all a bunch of fucking pansies out here. It's because they're looking at the health risks of of the children, of receiving fucking, basically brain damage. They're trying to prevent it, which I think is a good idea. I think it's a fantastic fucking idea that you don't subject little kids to brain injury. But I was listening to this radio show, as I mentioned, and they were taking calls because they were like, they already knew it was going to be a controversial fucking topic, right? And of course, they wanted to hear from people that, obviously disagree with this plan. And the sheer number of mothers that were calling in, arguing in favor of their kids experiencing brain damage was unbelievable to me. You kind of expect it, like if this were Boston, I 100% would expect, because we live, breathe, and die football. Well, and also basketball and hockey as well. But, we live and breathe football. So it would be expected in Boston for to hear the fucking occasional meathead be like, what are they, a bunch of fucking pussies over there? I get it. But in California, it's weird because it's like, you guys don't really care that much about your teams. You claim to. Well, actually, you know what? I think you care a little bit too much, because I've been to and seen, just on YouTube, I've seen plenty of instances where, people are beating the dog shit out of somebody for wearing the wrong hat, or wearing the other team's jersey or some shit. I don't like fucking California sports fans because you guys are fucking out of control. You take it way too, like in Boston, we take it serious, but we're not going to beat the dog shit out of you if you show up. Well, if you show up with a fucking, anything New York, we might, ask you to accompany us to the fucking parking lot. But, if any other fucking team, we'll probably give you shit. We'll break your balls, but we're not gonna fucking, we're not gonna stab you or beat you, to the point where you're damn near retarded. It's different, right? Here in California, the fucking, I know it is. I'm fucking dancing around it. The reality is there's far too many gang-related people that have decided that their particular team with their particular colors fits in with their particular fucking choice of colors. And therefore, it's no longer about the sport. It's more about, well, I don't like those colors, and I'm going to beat the shit out of you. So, whatever. But, it was unexpected to hear so many mothers calling in and arguing in favor. Like, this one mother was like, I think that we should keep the tackle football because, it's better for the kids to experience, the effects of playing tackle football now, so that when they get to high school and go on to college, that they're not just killed, or that they've already dealt with dealing with concussions and stuff. Can you believe that fucking argument was being made? We should expose our children to concussions and brain trauma now, so that when they're in high school, when they get brain trauma and concussions there, it won't be such a big deal. That's the argument this lady was making. It's fucking absurd. That took me, by surprise. Because, if it was somebody's dad, I could understand that, because as guys, we're just wired to be like, oh, don't be a fucking pussy. Go, just take the, fucking rub some ointment on it or some shit. That's our perspective. But to hear a mother come on and be like, you know what, I think it's okay that kids are experiencing, head trauma. That, it'll toughen them up for high school. And then one lady, I think it might have been even the same lady, had said, well, my husband is going to coach, so at least I know that that's not going to happen to my kids because of the way that my husband coaches. And it's like, lady, do you not hear what you're fucking saying? Because unless your husband is coaching every fucking team, you have no control about what the other kids on the other team do to your son. There's coaches out there that are fucking absolute maniacs that will be like, you know what? You see that kid right there? He's weak. Fucking attack him. Hit him hard. Make him cry. Be a fucking tough guy. There are coaches out there that don't really give a shit that these are children. But this lady has convinced herself that because her husband will teach them the fundamentals and teach them that, don't hit fucking, don't do head-to-head contact. This is just a game. Let's just enjoy ourselves. She's convinced that because her husband is like that every other fucking coach is going to be like that. We essentially live in a society of fucking meatheads. Not just here in California, but this entire fucking country. We're all just a bunch of fucking meatheads masquerading as intellectuals. Because we managed to go to the moon, we've convinced ourselves that, that we're fucking, that somehow we're better than everyone else. Well, when you have people purposely voting against the well-being of even themselves out of fucking spite, whether it be because you didn't vote for who I wanted you to vote for, or because I just don't like people that are a different color than me. When you have people doing shit like that, that's not a sign of intellectualism. That's a sign of tribal fucking bullshit, which is the same type of behavior that you see when it comes to meatheads and sports fans. When you have mothers arguing in favor of their children experiencing brain damage so that they'll know how to deal with it when they're in high school, that's not a sign of intelligence. That is purely meatheadedness. Now, am I pretending like I'm not a fucking part of the meathead society? I am. I'm 100% a fucking meathead. I'm just a little smarter than most meatheads in the fact that I understand that I am a meathead. Most people are convinced that they're the fucking smart guy. But if you're voting against your own interests, if facts are presented to you, and you're able to look up these facts, to verify these facts, and you deny those facts because it doesn't fit with your narrative, because it doesn't fit with, well, there's no possible way that my fucking candidate could have possibly lost to this fucking ass clown unless somebody meddled. When you're presented with shit like that and you choose to assume that it was Russian meddlers or a Hollywood actress or anybody else's fucking fault but the candidate, you're not an intellectual. You're not smart. You're a fucking meathead. And with that, I'm out of here. I hope you guys had a good weekend. I'll give you another one later on this week. But, I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you're having a good week thus far. I know it's fucking Monday, but, anyway, it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. All right. Like always, don't take any shit and go fuck yourself. Peace.